There may be a few of you left out there that are of the generation that remember that January 1st was always celebrated as the Feast of the Circumcision, because it is 8 days after Jesus Christ was born. And of course, we know from Jewish custom and tradition, all males were circumcised on the 8th day, and then they were given their name by the father. And so today was the Feast of the Circumcision, and then the following Sunday was the Feast of the Holy Name of Jesus. But in 1974, Pope Paul VI determined it best to restore the ancient order of liturgy as it had always been celebrated in the city of Rome. And in that tradition, the motherhood of Mary was celebrated on the 8th day after Christmas. But we still see the commemoration of the circumcision and the naming of Jesus in the gospel selected for today. But we may ask, what's the big deal? Why change the calendar? Why shuffle all these feast days? Does it, at the end of the day, really matter? Well, the answer is yes. It does matter. Because we worship as we believe. And how we worship says an awful lot about that belief. Because the solemnity of Mary, the Mother of God, answers the question, who was born on Christmas Day? And that was a controversy that racked the church for centuries. And it's still a question that bedevils Christianity even to this day. Who is it that was born on Christmas Day? And unless you get the motherhood of the Blessed Virgin Mary right, your answer about Jesus will always be wrong. That's why it matters. So who was born on Christmas Day? Jesus Christ, the eternal Word of the Father, through whom all things were made, who became flesh in the womb of the Blessed Virgin Mary and appeared on Christmas Day as true man, true God, true man. And it's for this reason that we are able to say that Mary is the Mother of God, not because she produced his divinity. That's impossible. You already know that. But what you also already know is that Jesus is one person. Yes, he has two natures. One nature is divine, one nature is human, but he's not two persons. He's one. And that person is divine. And so, who dwelt in the womb of the Blessed Virgin Mary for 9 months and appeared on Christmas Day, but the very Son of God? And we are pleased to acknowledge Mary as his mother. But then as we pursue this, it's also evident that, at least to my knowledge, it's never been documented by medical history, that a woman ever gave birth to a head without a body. That would be weird. Women give birth to bodies with a head. And because the Blessed Virgin Mary gave birth to the head of a body, which is the church, she is, by logical extension, also our mother. She is the mother of God. She is the mother of the church. She is the mother of each individual Christian soul that professes faith in her Son, Jesus Christ. But now we get in even a little deeper. Because we also know from our Catholic faith that Mary is a perpetual virgin. Before, during, and after the birth of Jesus Christ, which bakes an awful lot of noodles. And maybe it should. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, in bringing forth Jesus Christ into this world, Mary was spared the pains of childbirth. But there's a big but attached to that. But she was not spared the labor pains in bringing us to birth in the supernatural order of grace. After 40 days had passed for her purification, the Blessed Mother and Saint Joseph brought the child Jesus to the temple to present him to the Lord. And there they encountered Simeon. And what did Simeon do? He took up the child and he blessed God because he had been promised that he would not die until he had seen the promised Messiah with his own eyes. And in the midst of this great joy, in the fulfillment of a promise that God made to Simeon, it takes a really, really dark turn. It takes a really dark turn. And Simeon says out loud, "This child is destined for the rise and fall of many in Israel, a sign that will be contradicted." And then he turns to the Blessed Mother and said, "And you yourself a sword shall pierce," predicting and prophesying her own martyrdom, which would be fulfilled and realized on the mountain of Calvary. As she stood at the foot of the cross. And every mother should be able to sympathize with this to the nth degree. How hard do you think it was to see your child suffer in the most unimaginably cruel fashion? And as if that were not enough, you yourself, in conformity with the will of God, offered that same child for the salvation of the human race. That's an awful lot to ask one person. But God asked it. And she said yes. "I am the handmaid of the Lord, let it be done unto me according to your word." Mary knew what she was getting into after her interview with the Archangel Gabriel. She was not unaware. She knew she was signing up for the cross. And there at the cross, out of this unexampled love of neighbor, Mary offered her son as a sacrifice for our salvation. And in that unexampled agony, her soul was pierced with a sword. And there she experienced in spades the labor pains required to bring us into birth, into the supernatural order of grace. And there suffered her own unique and particular martyrdom. How grateful to God that he would create such a creature as the Blessed Virgin Mary. And how grateful to her we ought to be for her complete and perfect yes to the will of God.